Welcome to it. It is the Hail Varsity Black
Where's the
Friday
intro?
edition.
Where's
Chris
the intro?
Schmidt,
What
Mark
happened to the intro?
Kranak, Elijah Herbal. We are able to look and peer to our left here, top floor at the Marriott, just across the street from Kenneck. It is Nebraska. It is Iowa. Hope everyone had an amazing Thanksgiving. It's Nebraska. It's Iowa, fellas. And Big Red trying to make it 2 in a row here on the road. Going to be an electric environment, a blackout for the Hawkeyes. The ratio in the downstairs bar is 3-1 Hawkeye over Big Red. But shout out to Jason, Josh, and Deb, and Steve, and Tim, and a bunch of the listeners of Hail Varsity and the Average Joe podcast that have been awesome enough to come up and say, hey, Junior is here. He's all bundled up. He wore his lucky red Nike Dunks. So we'll see if Nebraska can make it happen. But Kranak, good to be with you. Elijah, appreciate you. We went over to Stella for those guys had incredible burgers. I mean, this is like diners, drive-ins, and dive type setting. And I had a chicken sandwich, but Elijah was going to just get all over me apparently for using a fork and a knife to get through the messiness. And everyone else is wearing their burger, and I'm clean and wonderful. Kranak, what'd you do to the beard?
All right, man. Listen. Okay, so everybody do you have a go-to trimmer? Well, you don't really grow the facial hair too much. Elijah, you do though, right? Like
yes, yeah.
Beard mustache trimmer. Mid-trim, the thing runs out of juice, right? I should have charged it. I didn't. So then I went to my backup, which was the haircut trimmer, right? It's actually a little bit better. I can hear the music playing. That's good. So it's good though. So I started. I like miscalculated the guard essentially, and then once you go too low, I don't know how I did it too. I set it right on there 1. So I don't like it. I don't like it. I'm not. This isn't a new thing. Yeah, this is not going to be a permanent thing at all. In fact, I wish there was a StreamYard like freaking effect like on Zoom and all that crap,
to give you a beard
where you could increase stubble.
Well, see,
exactly.
More chest hair.
Kranak, we're giving you hell. We're giving you hell about the beard. You were giving us hell about the intro, so I do need to explain.
Yeah,
the intro that we have loaded in is for the weekend edition, Saturday morning. The problem being it is not Saturday or morning. So we had to roll no intro. We had to get right into the content, and I think everyone will forgive us.
Cold open.
So
we'll
so
be back
you
tomorrow though.
But so you did that because you found the intro to be inaccurate.
Yeah.
Okay.
We could play it, but it kind of defeats the purpose because it's no longer the intro to the show, and it's not a Saturday or a morning. So
yeah, Gray Woman 79 in the stream right now. There was nothing for an intro. Exactly. Like that's how we kind of get going usually. But Elijah's like,
well, technically, it's actually not. It's not Saturday, and on the intro it says Saturday.
You don't sound like that, by the way.
The why. But coming up, we'll check in with Brandon Vogel from Counter Read. He'll join us on the stream. Black shirt Husker NFLer Jay Moore, part of Big Red Wrap Up. Jay was out in the cold in elements for the Big Red Wrap Up, I think, on Wednesday. So Jay will be with us right around 3:45.
Nice.
Bill Dolman going to jump in at 4.
It's like a holiday spectacular today.
Yeah, and then Danny Burke's best bets.
Oh my God!
To get you your last minute gambling information. Appropriately enough, we are on the 6th floor, and the classic rock band here is opening with "Jump." So, how high will Nebraska's
the Van Halen version? You mean, or the David Lee Roth?
Yeah. The only, quite frankly, version. But we're here in the Marriott, top floor, rooftop party, and we'll be here pre and post game, and then a weekend edition tomorrow at 7:45-ish. Guys, there's a lot to talk about today. Nebraska volleyball gets going in an hour as well at Penn State. We'll touch on that with Vogues as well. But, there's a bunch of things to get in. One, and I'm interested in, and I want to start here, Kranak and Elijah, is the trust factor. And we'll get our stream shout outs here as well in a moment. Starting 5 here, Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Twitter, KFOR Facebook and Twitter. trust? Do you trust Nebraska's defense / tackling today against Caleb Johnson and this Iowa offense, frankly, a one-dimensional Iowa offense?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you trust Nebraska's offense and Dana against this Phil Parker defense? I mean, what do you have more confidence in going into tonight's kickoff at Kinnick, 6:30? Is it Nebraska's defense right now, or is it the Nebraska offense after 2 games with Dana? And my vote right now is it should be a game the defense can handle. I'm worried. I'm weary about Nebraska's back end tackling, specifically safeties, or if the linebackers overrun or overplay. So I'm going to go with the offense. I think Nebraska can do enough offensively to be in a good spot. So that is where I'm going to lean. I think the wind will die down tonight by kickoff, and I think Nebraska's got the ability to be two-dimensional. They'll be able to run the football. They've been on a good run, pun intended, with that the last 2 games. And offensively, Dylan's found kind of his groove again. I think Nebraska's tight ends. I like Nayor. The guy played and balled in cold weather in Wyoming. I think he can have a big night tonight. So I'm going to lean offense.
And there's really fast, Mark. How's the band sounding? Because they are loud in here, but it sounds like you can still hear everything we're saying. So that is a big positive. We're expecting, what did they say,
550 people
at this tailgate.
Yeah, can't even hear it. Like,
beautiful.
Honestly, can't even hear it. Yeah.
Beautiful. The people specifically, I think you got to ask, can you trust? Are the guys setting the edge for Nebraska's defense? I mean, we were watching this morning on BTN the replay of Nebraska's 2014 win over Iowa, and you could just count. It was outside zone after outside zone after outside zone.
There's 3 Huskers around the area.
I mean, that's what Iowa's done for years. And you had a couple guys in the Husker defense that did a great job setting the edge, specifically in the second half of that 2014 game as he kind of mounted the comeback. I mean, it's going to be the same story today. Iowa loves their outside zone. Do you trust a guy in Jamari Butler or a guy in Cam Linhart to set the edge, make sure they don't get crashed down by one of Iowa's 3 massive tight ends, set that edge, try to force things back inside to your big nasties in the middle and some of your linebackers? That's going to be a big question for Nebraska today is, can you force a lot of those outside zones back inside? Can you successfully set the edge? When you don't, do you trust your corners to come up and make a tackle? Do you trust your safeties to get downhill? Because you look at the weather forecast. We were walking around outside today. It's cold. It's a little bit windy. That apparently the wind is supposed to die down.
What's it going to be tonight?
We're looking at
22.
About 22, but a wind chill of about 10 degrees tonight. So it does not feel like a game where you want to be trusting your receivers to go catch a hard football with cold hands. They're probably going to, I'd say I was probably going to run the ball north of 40, if not 50 times today. That's going to be the game plan, depending on if their offense is moving.
Last week, didn't they?
Yeah, but they were playing with the lead a little bit more in that game.
That's
And
fine.
I mean, they racked up, was it 300 on the ground, somewhere around there. So I'm not sure that's going to be in the cards for Iowa today, but you know they're going to run the hell out of the football. Can your ends force things back inside? Can you trust your run fits? And then whenever Iowa does pull out the rare play action pass, they try to get a guy up the seam. Can your linebackers have great eye discipline? Can your safeties have great eye discipline and keep that in front of them? Because it's not going to be a game that Iowa's going to throw the football more than 10, 15 times unless they really have to, which would be Nebraska with
That's
a
2 to 3
score
if they've
lead.
got to throw 20 plus times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and they're probably not gonna, right? Like, it's just that I don't think they have the ability to. When they get into that play action, though, when they get into that boot and the tight end kind of crosses along with the quarterback, they have absolutely killed Nebraska with that for years. That's the thing that worries you the most. It's not going to be the volume of passes. It's not going to be deep throws. You're not going to be worried about Iowa going for 300 yards. But when they do pass, after they lull you to sleep, where 1 out of every 5 play or 4 out of every 5 plays is a run, you become susceptible, right? And then you don't have to be a great quarterback. You don't, because you just have a one-on-one situation with a guy that bit on the run. And so you hope that doesn't happen. Now you're asking who you trust, though, right?
Nebraska's offense or Nebraska's defense today?
Okay, so some disturbing trends defensively right now. Have you all noticed the yards per play by any chance by chance in the last 5 games for Nebraska's defense? It's bad, right? I think the average is somewhere around 6.89, and I know yards per play might not be one of those statistics that folks really kind of have committed to memory, quite like
yards. I mean, it's been bad. I mean, USC was cranking you out for 8.5 on first down.
Yeah. Well, if you just took the last 5 games, Nebraska would rank dead last in the Big Ten, below Purdue, average-wise, on yards per play. They have not been under 6 yards per play. You know, a team that the conference leader right now, just for frame of reference, kind of the scale you're trying to work with, Ohio State's number 1 at 4.1 yards a play, right? 4.1. Nebraska's at like 6.8, which would rank below Purdue. However, a lot of that, as we know, has been in the air. It's been passes. It's been quarterbacks having, you know, their best career kind of performances against Nebraska regularly. But you got to feel good about going against this cat. 5th string quarterback for Iowa. And he was what, a linebacker like last year or something like that. I mean, the guy's, you know, he's not a Division I quarterback. We know that.
Well,
but you like Nebraska's
kind of
chances to maybe bring it down.
He was a backup at Colorado State last year as a quarterback, and I think had like 4 attempts on the season or something like that. He's not a power 4 starting level quarterback as of right now. And that's what the game plan is not going to be dependent on him. It's going to be getting Caleb Johnson going, getting him moving downhill.
Yep.
Iowa, with how they play, especially at Kinnick, they need to take a lead early in this football game. If they find themselves down by 10 points in the first half,
it's going to be nuts.
It gets them out of rhythm offensively. Like, it's going to be so big for them. They're going to try to play field position early. They're going to try to punch one in, and they're going to try to play with the lead. This is a game that they want to go win 13-10, 10-7, somewhere in there. Like, to me, if you're looking at a key for Nebraska to change the script on this one, it's you go out and take a 7-10 point lead early and make Iowa play from behind, because you don't beat Iowa at Kinnick at night if you don't have the lead. You don't come from behind and beat them in a night game at Kinnick. It's just not how they operate. That's what they're built to do. They're going to beat you on special teams. They're going to get after your offense defensively, and they're going to play with that crowd behind them in a night game at Kinnick. It's what they do.
Well, the other thought, too, is you're trailing, and to make up for that point differential, you're going to have to start throwing the football. You're going to pin their ears back. Your running game has been a strength for you, as with Nebraska. Second half against USC, all game against Wisconsin, and that's taken a lot of pressure off Dylan having to do it all. And it's been a compliment to the offense with the time he's had, yes, but the defense has had to respect the run game for Nebraska, and they've been in good down and distance situations because of that run game. Get the lead and jump out or stalemate it. So the other thing too with Nebraska, they missed 10 tackles last Saturday against Wisconsin. 6 of the 10 missed by the secondary. Yeah. And I know the ability.
You're a big fan. I know you're a big fan.
No, yeah. The ability's there, but I'm saying for Gifford and for Hartzog and for Singleton, those 3 guys can play good football. They've played good football.
Yeah.
Throughout much of their career. That being said, they've got to be sure. I mean, be sure, slow down Johnson or slow down the tight end. And then there's got to be 3 to 4 white jerseys around Johnson for sure. But as cold as it's going to be, you know this, Elijah, it is hard to get a grasp, right?
Yeah.
Your body's just dealing with the elements, and you slip off. You tend to slip off in cold weather games when it comes to rapping.
Yeah, we saw it with the Miami Dolphins last night. I think they had almost 20 missed tackles in that game last night against the Packers. Like, that's real.
Yeah.
Let's get.
And I know on my Hartzog apologist tour last weekend, he didn't necessarily come through in that game. I want to also say he shouldn't be a corner either. I think that's an important distinction there. Like, when you put him there, it's probably not going to go well. Maybe in the slot, right? But he needs to be in the secondary where he's a little bit more free to roam, whatever position that would be in any given call in the 3-3-5. But
one of the 5,
he is actually pretty solid in the run game for the most part. I have been pretty happy with how he's played there. Giff had his toughest game, I think, last week.
And the other thing with Giff,
weird angles.
Is how healthy, and this is not an excuse, it's a question. How healthy are you at this point in the year. I know last year in November, Giff had a couple of games he would want back. I'm thinking Michigan State from a tackling standpoint, but it turns out the guy needed off-season surgery,
Right.
So
right.
If
But you need tackles today. Like you hope it's not a thing where he needs surgery or whatever. I'm sure he is playing injured.
everyone's just beat the hell up at this point in the year.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. But
that's
nobody
the value
cares
of
right now.
That's the value of having a guy like Riley Van Poppel that you can bring off the bench at this point in the season.
That's a name to watch.
Only played
today.
in 3, hasn't played in a month and a half, I think was last time we saw him, maybe 2, the Rutgers game.
Yep.
From correctly, it was the last time we saw Van Poppel. Big opportunity for him to get out there and get some snaps, take a little pressure off of Nash and Ty. And kind of along with that, I do wonder if they change up some of the defensive fronts today against Iowa. That's one of the benefits of the 3-3-5 is that the 3-3-5 is multiple. It doesn't always look like a 3-3-5. We saw a lot of last year whenever teams were running the ball against Nebraska. It was more of a 4-2-5. I mean, what does today look like? Do you go 4-4-3? And
give me the old Eagle defense, a 5-man front or a 4-man front.
A 5-3.
give me a Rutgers repeat where you've got an extra. It was almost a 52. To be honest with you,
listen today. Iowa at receiver does not have, knock on wood, they don't have dudes at receiver, right? Like
famous last words. What Iowa doesn't have.
They probably have a future NFL tight end. I'm sure they have that. But I'm just saying at receiver, there's nobody that necessarily scares you. Nebraska could run man. If Sierra's healthy today, and maybe Bly Hill, he looked like he was okay, but still kind of learning a little bit.
Knocking the rust off a little bit.
We know Tommy's on the bench. Marquise Buford had the flu last week. You heard Tony White talking about that. You could probably play man. And if you can do that, you can devote a few more folks to the run game. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's what Nebraska tries to do today, which is a little bit different than what they do all the time. But if you're going to do it, today's the day.
Let's get our starting 5 shout-outs. We'll hear from Brandon Vogel in a little bit. It's the Black Friday edition of Hail Varsity Radio on the road here covering Nebraska at Iowa. Chris Schmidt, Mark Kranak, Elijah Herbal. We're top floor. It's a rooftop party. We're indoors. Yeehaw. Right across from Kinnick Stadium at the Marriott. The amazing folks here at the Marriott. This is year 2 we have done this. We were here 2 years ago when Trey Palmer woke up pissed off. Mike Corrigan is in first and has been in here for a while. Charles checks in. Charles, good to have you. GBR, let's play free. Let's play easy. Let's get one in Iowa City. Mike, where it's warm in California, is recovering from a tryptophan coma. Wrestling Oranges is in. Justin is here. The other Dave checks in. Game Dog, good to have you, man. Colorado dropped a nuke on Oklahoma State. I wonder if Gundy is safe. I hope he's safe. If you're a Nebraska fan and you want Holgorsen to stay around. Jeff is here. Game day. Jay is in. Rick checks in. Captain is back. Nate is here. Nate, good to have you. Cliff in Florida. Cliff, I want some of that Florida weather. Walter, south of Philly, screaming, stop the run. Gray Woman 79 is in. Dion, good to have you, partner. As well as NASCAR Eric. Bruce from Spearfish, Rule the Day. Dustin is here. And more of your comments and thoughts. Shane is here, says 7 and 5. Make it happen.
The starting 5 is like a starting 43.
It's all right. The folks with the Hail Varsity YouTube and our Average Joe partners, it's like the front that Tony White shuffled in. It's a 3-deep, 3-man and woman hockey line.
Starting 5's doing a line change like every.
Sexy Grinch.
Come at they come at us in waves.
Crew is screaming, "Let's go Hawkeyes!" Crew, we love you, but hope you're sad today. Scott is here.
That's a confusing dichotomy. He's an everyday listener of a Nebraska-themed radio show, yet he's rooting for the Hawkeyes today. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Black Hills Brennan makes a good point. He said the roster limit is 105, Kranak. So that's what we got going here.
Brandon Vogel is with us from counterread, counterread.com. Jeff Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, is en route. Do they have old fashions? I think they do.
Brandon
Snickleys.
is pissed. Brandon
Brandon woke up feeling pissed off.
Yeah,
Folks,
Brandon
how are
is-
we? Happy Thanksgiving a day later, bud.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving to you guys as well. Doing
Why-
okay. I can
Why
hear
are you
outside. Go ahead.
Why are you pissed?
There's a 3-year-old meltdown going on out there, not far away. So
Yep.
hopefully it's not coming through, but that's happening.
Out
Yeah.
there. Honey, I
Out
got to go
there.
do a radio show. I'll be back in a bit.
Yeah.
It
If
was
you need to
fine
stay
when
on
I
with
came-
us longer, it's okay.
It was
Yeah.
fine when I came in here, but
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah. A
What's
little
the,
whiskey. Little
what's-
whiskey can help
What's the meltdown regarding?
for
I
the
don't
kid.
know.
That is.
I have no idea.
Just saw Iowa's offensive stats from last week and hates football circa 1974.
All right.
There's
can
no
we-
passing attack.
Can we start off? I'm sure y'all hit this. Of course you did during the week. But Dana Holgorsen's recent press conference, my God, I have never heard an offensive coordinator throw basically his program under the bus in the way that he
His
did.
fellow coaches?
That was bonkers. I have never heard anything like that before. And if anybody missed it, the TLDR version is he's like, our playbook was too big and overcomplicated. We didn't even practice half the crap that we called in the games. And well, that's kind of enough, right? Like, that's enough. That's the TLDR version. The playbook was too complicated and we didn't practice half the crap we called. And so, yeah, that's why our offense was an effing mess. And then he comes in here and within 2 games seems to have rectified and made the offense look coordinated. Brandon, when you heard what Dana was saying, your response there, and how much would you like to be one of those other coaches that he did not name by name?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be one of those other coaches. Although, I guess my kind of big picture response was it sent me back to, I think it was last January when Rule said, something along the lines is like, everywhere we've been good on defense and kind of middle of the road on offense. And it made me think of that in that, so they've, Rule's had a couple of offensive coordinators. It wasn't always Satterfield. It was mostly Satterfield. And they just kind of accumulated stuff. Holgorsen mentioned the pro style nature of it. And it's easy to keep adding stuff, I think, to put it frankly, like when Rule said that last January, it kind of made me think like, well, offense is kind of an afterthought. And the air raid was built on simplicity. Like, in fact, Holgorsen said it, it was kind of, they took everything about a pro style offense and said, we're going to do the opposite. So it's not that I took it for granted because I don't think any of us totally knew how this would work given the time frame in which the change happened. But simplicity is really important. And I think particularly so on offense. So to hear that, at least in Holgorsen's mind, the remedy for what ailed Nebraska was to just dial things back a little bit and have a little bit of vision. Because if you don't have a vision, that's how you keep adding stuff. Like, oh, well, this guy just came from the NFL and he's got a great place, so let's put that in.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you end up with, like you said, Mark, a bunch of stuff that you practice but never use.
Yeah.
Is there any further proof than a block away here at Kinnick Stadium that you don't need to have a complex offense to have an offense that wins football games? I don't think anyone's going to accuse Iowa of having a high-flying, stylish offense or an offense that's going to really blow anybody out. But you look at the stats,
It's worked.
they've put up 40 points a couple times this year. They play complementary football. I think it's all the evidence you need that you don't necessarily need to have a complex, modern offense in order to go out and win football games. You can be predictable and still go win.
No, I mean, the spread and RPO era is almost largely a refutation of that idea. Well, more so the RPO than I guess the spread. But then also, and I don't even know if Iowa fans were, but I can't speak for them. But looking from the outside, who was excited about them hiring Tim Lester to replace Brian Ferentz? They could have went out and got flavor of the month, the hot new guy with bright new ideas, and that would have been interesting. But it would have been a major departure for them. And Iowa's offense has taken a huge jump this year. So it's simplicity is kind of if you can execute it well enough and you're not at a big talent disadvantage, simplicity is a proven winner in college football.
Brandon Vogel with us here. Counterread.com. We're here across from Kinnick at the Marriott, the rooftop party. Chris Schmidt, Mark Cranack, Elijah Herbal, as we are taking you till 5. We'll be here for Real Red Reaction. KFOR, KFORnow.com. More of your comments in the stream. How are you feeling today? What do you trust, the Nebraska offense tonight, or do you trust the Nebraska defense against Caleb Johnson? Vogues, that's where we kicked off. Where are you leaning? Where would you put your chips on? The defense having a better bounce-back tackling game against a wounded offense, but a proven winner in Caleb Johnson. Or, all right, it's now Dana 3.0. You saw what happened last week against a pretty good defense. Going to be cold and miserable, but it's not going to be as windy tonight, we don't think. And you got a run game that's been going pretty well for Nebraska. So where do you lean? Is the defense the liability, or is it the offense going up against Phil Parker in a ruckus setting?
Yeah, I trust the defense more in this one, which seems like maybe the higher risk pick because it's close. But Jackson Stratton, Iowa's quarterback, has thrown 20 passes in 5 quarters that he's been the guy. His longest pass is 15 yards. Nebraska, defensively, not as good as it was a year ago. Middle of the road in terms of success rate, meaning Caleb Johnson, who's, I think, gone for more than 6 yards a carry in most of his games this year, I think all but 2, if not all of them, he's going to get his yards. The key will be, and Nebraska's defense has remained good at this, limiting the explosive plays or the explosive rushes. And I think they should be able to do that. So that's why I like the defense. In Iowa, from a rushing success rate, not as good as I would have expected for the overall numbers they've put up that way. If the weather was a little bit warmer, I might take the offense, Nebraska's offense in this matchup. It's a question of, I mean, for me to boil the game all the way down, it's like who runs the ball better. And I don't mean like statistically, I kind of mean more effectively, like who produces more with their running game. And I think that Nebraska's defense has a chance to limit the damage there. I don't know what to expect totally from Nebraska's rushing offense. At least they have the threat of throwing the ball. If it was a little bit warmer and we were a little more certain of the weather, I would say, well, Nebraska can throw the ball as much as it wants to. And maybe it still will, but it probably wouldn't be how I would approach a game that's going to be close to 20 degrees at kickoff.
If you look at Nebraska's strengths defensively too, and some of their personnel, maybe let's get into that a little bit about, why you might trust Nebraska's defense. At least for me, Brandon, I feel like you have the right personnel to feel good about it. They're not necessarily going to be the guys that you would play against Indiana or, Ohio State or whatever, but even folks like Stephon Thompson, like Bayer, like Singleton has struggled a little bit, but not in run support. But Van Poppel you might be able to put in. Right? Is that what gives you kind of the confidence, is just the sort of bigger, sturdier, stuff to run body types that Nebraska has available?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. We've seen Nebraska run some bare front this year, so 5 linemen. And, until Iowa shows that it's willing to let their quarterback throw the ball, and that, I mean, he hasn't been bad on the throws that he's had. There's just not many. I mean, 20 over 5 quarters, that's 4 a quarter. So if that's going to be the case, Nebraska can devote a lot of resources to defending the run. That's been a problem at times this season because Nebraska hasn't been very good in man coverage. But in this one, you probably feel okay about your opportunity to take a shot. Luke Lachey, the Iowa tight end, is a really good player, but Riley Vanderzee, who's probably their most explosive receiver, is out for this game. he's not their leading receiver, but he's 6'4", true freshman with 3 touchdowns, which leads the team. So I think a lot of that points to like Nebraska can load up pretty confidently in ways that you can't in most games, and it's just circumstance with what's going on with Iowa at quarterback.
Brandon Vogel is with us. So Vogues, they're playing a little China Grove. If you are going to fire up a 70s classic rock request, what song is Brandon Vogel going with?
For firing up, oh man, Kashmir probably.
Ah,
It kind of
Ooh.
stomps. That's probably what it would be.
Somebody sing. I don't even know. I'm sure I've heard it. I just don't know it by name. Can we sing it? Somebody?
Kashmir
Led
with
Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin from Physical Graffiti.
I don't know it by song name. I probably know it by, like the vocals. So let me just hear it. Real
Song
quick.
Kashmir.
Yeah.
Just give us the riff, Elijah.
All right, you remember the song that was playing at Fast Times at Richmond High in the
No.
van?
No.
Da 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 da.
Because
Okay.
the big thing with it is the drum groove's in 4/4, and then the guitar groove is in 7/8. So it's got a really interesting little thing going on for the music nerds out there.
That's funny because somebody seriously just put in the comments earlier, like, weren't you in the band, Elijah, nerd? And then he just conjures up. No, seriously, somebody said that in the comments earlier today, and I was like, where did that come from? And then you start dropping like actual music education on us, which is just great.
I'm trying to think if the guitar, it was either an 8 or it was in 12. I can't remember, but it's a really interesting little thing, and it makes the song sound really interesting. It's music theory for you. We learned about it back in the day.
Sounds
Anyway.
like math. Sounds like math. That's terrible.
Vogues, can we get your take? I need a prediction here before we say goodbye, but I need to know Nebraska, Penn State get rocking here in 25 minutes. And Nebraska's unscathed. Penn State has kicked
You're talking
it
volleyball there. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Has kicked it into gear. And this is for your Big Ten championship pretty much.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one on the court. That Penn State Gymnasium is a place Nebraska is well familiar with. Been a lot of great matches there, and I think Nebraska will get pushed a little bit. These are two of the best defensive teams in the Big Ten and two of the best in the country. So that's always kind of you're always in for a battle there. But I would expect Nebraska to get it done. Thanks for the clarification, Mark, because I was also about to say James Franklin doesn't like Maryland, so I think Penn State will take care of that one pretty easily.
Did Nebraska travel too far? What's happening? Okay.
On the football side, I like Nebraska. I think they've got a good shot. I worry a little bit of that last week was such a catharsis that, as Elijah was talking about earlier, the start's always important in a game, and it's going to be really important in this one, I think, with the cold temps, especially, and Iowa's limitations offensively. But I think Nebraska will be able to defend the run well enough. Like, you just got to avoid those big plays, and if you avoid any major gaffes offensively, or something that swings things on special teams, I think Nebraska's got a really good shot to come away with a win here. So, and in the game preview this week, I had Huskers 23-20, and I think it'll be that kind of game.
Okay. If Nebraska does win this game tonight, Vogel, what does Nebraska need from Emmett Johnson, the guy you assume is going to get the lion's share of the carries after what he put out there last week? What type of game does Nebraska's offense need from him?
Yeah, I think on the rushing side, you're probably hoping for over. I mean, this Iowa defense is tough. Over 4 a carry, and probably over 22, 25 carries. Like, for Nebraska to do this, I think they need to be able to run the ball that consistently. Then if you can get him, as we saw last week, out of the backfield on some receiving stuff, that's an easier way to get some of those passing yards, keep a defense honest, without having to just drop back and kind of do it the traditional way. So 4 or 5 catches out of him, I think, and that'd be a pretty solid day that would put Nebraska in a spot where it could win this game.
Yeah.
Brandon Vogel with us, counterread.com. Vogues, I need a prediction, and then how can folks get signed up? What is going on with Counter Read on Black Friday, man?
Yeah, so we put out our game day guide today, and our game day chat will be going live here pretty soon. So happy to have anybody over there for that. That's for subscribers only, though. So you will have to get signed up. But great time to do that. We'll have reaction from this, and there'll be a lot of bowl watching in the week ahead. Plus whatever happens in volleyball. So. Exciting time of year, especially having the Huskers involved in a postseason football game that you can add to basketball and then the volleyball postseason, of course. So plenty of great stuff to come there. And we'd love to have anybody over there.
Yeah, and don't look now, but basketball might be pretty fun to talk about in the off season, which is pretty interesting. I would say they're a little ahead of schedule right now.
I would agree.
What happens? What happens? John Hole for the win. Little payback.
Boy, would that be nice. I did have the game as a field goal in the Huskers' favor. I was thinking more of a get a nice lead, get a little lead, and hold on to it. But yeah, let's go with that. Let's go with a whole game winner to end the regular season with some momentum that didn't seem all that possible a couple of weeks ago.
Folks, we will corral you tomorrow, Big Cat, for the weekend edition. Appreciate you much. Have a good rest of your Black Friday, and thank you as always, man.
You too, guys. Thanks.
Appreciate you, Brandon. He's got to go back to the tantrum now. Got to go back to the tantrum.
Well, I think, I mean, he had about a 13-play, 79-yard, 8-minute drive right there.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and actually, he probably outlasted the tantrum. He probably did. I bet you everything's okay now.
I'm going to be honest, Schmitty, I can barely hear what you're saying, but that's just the fun of Iowa City, I guess.
Okay. All right, come on, guys. Let's hear some confidence, says DCK.
Hey, I think Nebraska's offense can mix it up today, DCK. I think they can keep the run game going. The O-line's in a great rhythm. Dylan's playing confident. And it's not that Nebraska can't tackle. I think they'll be better defensively today. This time of year, man, you get worn down. You get worn down defensively, and teams miss tackles. That's just, and guys like Caleb Johnson make you miss tackles. So, but I like Emmett. I like Emmett tonight. What I fear though is how slippery that pig is. This will come down to a turnover today by one of the two teams.
And Iowa's pretty much the best at that in the conference in terms of being plus in the turnover category. Nebraska's fallen off a little bit, but a lot of that was interceptions. Indiana obviously skewed things for Nebraska. Been pretty good in that department, right? Pretty good. But I believe Iowa has an interception in like literally every game this year. Literally every game they get a pick at some point. And they put corners in the league with regularity. They put pass rushers in the league with regularity. They put linebackers in the league with regularity. There's a lot of Hawkeyes that dot NFL rosters, and I'm sure they got a handful of those guys now. Let's see, Marcus Schmidt in the
Uncle Mark chiming in.
Stay doom and gloom. That way we have a chance. Exactly. Like we cannot be confident here that Nebraska's got it all sorted just because Dana Holgorsen showed up a couple weeks ago. All right. Chris is drinking that Dana Kool-Aid big time. I mean, he's over here just like, I trust the offense. I'm probably going to get their poster. I'm going to hang it up on the wall. I mean,
one of the things you can say about Dana and the impact is he brought out a level of confidence last week in Dylan Rilo that I don't think we've seen since probably the first
Colorado.
3 quarters of the Illinois game. Dylan had some confidence going in that Illinois game as well. He looked all right. He brought out a level of confidence in him we haven't seen since then. And you feel good about his ability to keep that confidence rolling. Now, does a cold day in Iowa City with an Iowa defense that loves to generate takeaways, does that shake the confidence? You never know. It's a possibility. But I feel better that Dylan Rilo is going to have a better confidence in himself this week than he did against, say, a UCLA or a USC or an Indiana. Those were times where he did not look like he had self-confidence. As Schmitty takes us around the bar here on the computer,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah, that
we
was
just had
excellent.
to do it.
But
We just
that's
had to
what I'll
do
say.
around the world.
Dana
Yeah.
brought out a level of confidence in Dylan Raiola that gives me confidence in what this Husker offense can be today in Iowa City.
Yeah, Dylan
Great
looked a
woman.
lot different.
Gray Woman 79 says, Grandma Shirley wants to know, will Fedoni get reps today? Grandma Shirley was my sweet grandmother, Grandma Hunt. Best woman ever. And I'd like to ask my Grandma Hunt if Fedoni will get reps today. But Dana answered that question on Tuesday. And they challenged Fedoni. He's had a couple of good practices, or great is the term that Dana used. And yeah, what are you going to do about it if you don't like what happened last week? 3 snaps, false start, benched, and you've got the other 2 tight ends. Borkacher has been underused his entire career. Super talent. And they got Lindenmeyer. You have really nice options. And I get why Fedoni's your dude. I mean, the guy's battled back from the cliff twice with ACLs. And I expect Fedoni, this is going to be a nice homecoming from him. He's Council Bluffs kid, but he's an Iowa guy. I think he could have some big plays tonight. He'll be absolutely motivated and fired up. He's got to go that top dog spot in the tight end room where it was just assumed. He was challenged last week by Dana and last Saturday.
Well, and Dana brought up, talking about Dana Holgorsen, of course, the offensive coordinator. He brought up some things that you would think are just sort of built into a program. And I'm kind of waffling back and forth between whether or not I am more pleased with how Rule made the change midway through compared to that he let the offense get to that place in the first place, right? I'm trying to reconcile that. I'm leaning a little bit more towards, hey, at least you caught it. At least you're changing it. At least you're admitting that the offensive plan and staff that you came in here with ain't working. Didn't work at all. And you absolutely need to change it. It's crazy that it happened during a season. But it is a little concerning that he let it get to that point, especially the way Dana described it. He basically just said Nebraska's offense has been a show. He said it's basically been unmanaged and uncoordinated. And that's what we all saw. We all saw that. And then so for Rule to let that happen is a little like, okay, just taking note of it. It's not like run his ass out of town because of it, but take note. And let's see if that ever continues on any other part of the program.
Here's what I think with that. I think the intent for the offense was to get as much attention as the defense, but maybe some initial personnel you wanted running the offense or a part of your offensive staff didn't happen when you were hired 2 years ago.
Fair.
So you settled with some guys you know.
Yeah.
Okay. And you said, all right, defense will be good enough that it won't matter. And your philosophy is going to be NFL. You win every game 24-17. And that's just not sustainable.
No.
So you're correcting it better late than never.
Yeah.
Versus who you probably wanted to bring in. They didn't come in. So let's ride with what we got. And yeah, it was absolutely not working. You were at a very pivotal point because you needed your team to say, yeah, we now know and believe that you're going to get us ready to go win. We're going to prepare you to win on offense. I think they feel that more than ever now that Dana Holgorsen's running the show. Speaking
of Dana Holgorsen, remember he caused waves leading into last week when he said, hey, I found another guy offensively that is going to be outstanding. And but we haven't met as a staff yet. And everybody was wondering who that player was, that kind of unnamed offensive player. humor me this. How much do you think maybe he said, maybe there wasn't any specific guy?
The chess match of motivation.
Exactly. Like, to me, that's Dana saying, oh man, I found a kid that was really good. And if you're any one of those backups that's not playing, what are you going to do that next? You're going to be like, maybe he's talking about me. Right. And then you start playing a little bit harder. And then you saw what happened in the game after that, against Wisconsin last week. And generally speaking, everybody that got snaps played pretty well, right? Like you can't necessarily point at anybody that had a garbage game, maybe outside of Fedoni, but they took him out right away, right? Took him out right away. So you can only get after him so much there. But good on Dana. Nebraska is now in a situation, and good on Rule. Nebraska is now in a situation much like Ohio State, where you have Ryan Day and you got Chip Kelly on the same effing staff. This does not happen 2 years ago. You're not getting that caliber of coach that has been successful at the Division I Power 4 level, being on the same staff like that, unless you're Ohio State. And can spend that kind of money, or Alabama. So good on Nebraska for taking advantage of that. And it looks like, we don't want to sit here and say that the offense is like forever corrected, but if last week is any indication, they did look coordinated. They did look competent. They did look damn near deadly at times.
You at least have a knife or a gun in a fight now versus being weaponless. We welcome in Jay Moore, black shirt Husker NFLer and co-host Big Red Wrap-Up. He was not wearing sleeves when it comes to the outdoor version of Big Red Wrap-Up to wrap up, last week.
He was Vaselined up.
Jay, how we doing, bud? Good to spend time. Happy Thanksgiving, man.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, boys. Yeah, it's been good. Just hanging out with Mama's working, so me and Mav have just been kind of having a bro day. Just hanging out, shooting some hoops. Went to visit our friends over at the press box, had some lunch, made sure the beer was cold, and then came home. Been watching football ever since. So it's volleyball game's about to start, and obviously we got the Huskers Iowa here in a couple hours.
What do you think defensively tonight, bud? Nebraska can do. We were talking tackling a lot this first hour, and how you're going to miss tackles. I get it; it's hard to do. That being said, Nebraska's volume of missed tackles last week is a little concerning. You're going to be facing a first-team All-American and Caleb Johnson, and that's really Iowa's main hope offensively tonight.
Yeah, it's been tackling's been spotty at best this year. We've seen some games where it's been better. Ohio State, it was better. Rutgers, it was better. But at times, and it kind of comes down to in secondary, these guys that Isaac Gifford and Singleton, who get rolled up into the box in certain coverages and run game scenarios, they struggle. And to be frank, a lot of secondary guys struggle. It's hard to tackle a guy in space when they're that athletic, but they're going to be asked to do a lot tonight against Caleb Johnson. Tackling is going to be a big deal. I know Nebraska, let's be honest, they're not going to get tested vertically, but where Nebraska doesn't get tested, Iowa does so well is they kind of just lull you to sleep. They get the stretch plays going, inside zone, outside zone, all of a sudden, boom, they throw a play action, a bootleg off of it. You get your eyes in a bad spot because they've ran 4, 5, 6 times in a row, and then they get a tight end over top or a wide receiver on a corner, a double move or something like that, and boom, it's 6 points or it's a big gain. So this is a big game tackling. Obviously, got to win on first and second down. More importantly, on first down, got to get Caleb Johnson down when you can. It's going to take multiple guys. You got to arrive with bad intentions. But to me, this is as big as it's always an important aspect. But playing with good eyes, good vision, and disciplined eyes off the play action passes. Because if you don't, they'll eat you alive. I know it's even with their third or fourth string backup quarterback, whoever it is, he's still got some ability to throw the ball. And when you got guys running wide open, in that intermediate passing game off of the play action. He'll dice you up real quick. So they got to be even better with the vision and making sure they're picking up guys in the back end off the play action.
Jay, with a team like Iowa that loves to run, as you laid it out, inside zone, outside zone with repeated effect, take us through the importance of setting the edge on a day like today. Having your guys, I mean, you look at MJ, you look at Princewell, you look at Cam Linhart. Those guys are going to have a lot on their plates today. What is the importance of setting the edge?
Yeah, that's always important. That's one of the most important aspects of playing defensive football and stopping the run is you always got to have that edge set, and you got to kind of force the ball back into where your help is. And whether it's a Princewell, could be a Ty Robinson line up in a 5 technique, could be him, but you can't allow them to bounce on you when your linebacker's kind of caught up inside. And then it forces a secondary, a safety guy to come down that alley and make a play, and it's just too hard. It's too hard of a task. So whether it's Princewell, MJ, Cam Lenhart, Ty, whoever it may be, if you're to that side of the play, you got to set it. And then once you set it, and if you get a tight end or tackle up the field a little bit, and you got the edge, and you do force them to bounce inside, now come off inside into that, maybe that C gap area or B gap, depending on how they're lined up situationally, and make that play. Just because you set the edge doesn't mean your job is done. Get off a block and go make a play too. So very, very important in a game like this, especially on those outside zones, those stretch plays that Iowa runs so well in what Kirk Ferentz has kind of had for years, decades, right? Of running that type of play. You got to do it, but also you got to be just as good on the back end when you do set that edge and that they'll cut back lanes. You got to even be better. So a lot of times it's that opposite defensive end, coming down. Don't get lulled to sleep. Don't get lazy. Come down there and shuffle down, with your shoulders horizontal to the line of scrimmage, and then make that play for a 1 to 2 yard gain or hopefully a loss. You got to be able to. You can't have too much space in between you and that offense tackle. You got to come down and make that play when it needs to be, because if the edge is set, it's going to cut back to your area. So you got to be ready to make a play there as well.
Jay Moore is with us. Jay, I'm an amateur. You did this professionally, so I'm curious. When I look at Iowa and their offensive line in particular, it feels like their footwork when they are running zone is so in unison. And you hear about unity on the offensive line. You hear about continuity. Excuse me. That's a thing, right? Like, is that a kind of a separator for Iowa in that they really are, all 5 are taking the exact steps at the exact same time, precisely, and just doing it over and over and over. And especially by the end of the year, to me, it looks like they just get better as the year goes on. And by the time you hit now, week 12, week 13, they pretty much have it down pat.
Yeah, it's Kirk Ferentz is one of the best offensive line coaches in the business. He's been doing it a long, long time. Now, granted, they've had good players come in there, and they've had a multitude of first-round draft pick, second-round draft pick guys who are playing up and down NFL rosters on Sundays. So recruiting is part of that, but also the way they develop their players. They don't come in there. I mean, let's be honest, they're not getting a bunch of 5-star offensive guards and offensive tackles. They're getting some, 2, 3, and maybe they sneak in a 4 every now and then, but they make them a 5-star first-round draft pick by the time they leave there. That's because they develop in the right way. The strength program has been really, really good at Iowa, but he knows how to coach and develop. And they run a very similar NFL pro style system as well. So you can kind of take that from what you do in Iowa City over to any of the 32 NFL teams and mimic that pretty easily. So, but yeah, you see it, the way they run, everyone's in unison. The footwork, everything is it's almost like they're tied together, by the feet. And they've the last couple of years, they've had some injuries and they graduated. This year they've gotten better. Some of those young players that they've seen the last couple of years are now juniors and seniors. So that's why Caleb Johnson and they're still that have all the success when you have injuries and all the stuff that happened at quarterback, because your offensive line is so good. But I tell you what, I think this is a game where your Jamari Butler, your Nash, your Ty. This is you love these type of games. You know what you're going to get. If you do your job and play well, man, your defense, the defense, the team's gonna have success. So I know they're gonna be licking their chops to get ready to play and honestly improve their status as well, draftability wise, because this is NFL style offense. They got some NFL players up there as well. So it's gonna be fun to see those three guys kind of go at it, and see some younger guys step up too. Might see some Raleigh Van Poppels and the Judys and some of those guys that have an opportunity to kind of make their mark in this game as well.
Jay, we opened this show by talking trusting the Husker offense, trusting the Husker defense. What side do you trust more? I want to ask you just more generally, what do you trust that Nebraska can get done today, either offensively or defensively? What do you have trust in as you count down to kickoff at Kinnick?
Man, that's a good question. You probably asked me a couple weeks ago, I probably would have said the defense. But the way they've kind of – I know Wisconsin's struggling, obviously – struggled against Minnesota today, but the way the offense was able to sustain drives and get points and pick up third down conversions. They're 7 for 7 in the red zone getting points. That's been a long time since an offense has been able to do that at Nebraska. I feel better right now. I'll be honest. I feel better right now about Nebraska's offense. I know the defense has leadership, and they have some guys who will have probably the greatest chance to play on Sundays, but the inconsistencies in the back end of that secondary scared me a little bit. And I know this is a game where they're not going to have 4 or 5 wide and all sorts of crazy route tree concepts. What scares me about Nebraska's defense is just that on the secondary, and I've talked about playing with good eyes and good vision, is they haven't done that. I can just look to numerous plays, whether it's been Indiana, obviously, but times at Ohio State game and times against USC and UCLA, they're just eyes get in the wrong spot, and it's kind of, I don't know how you call it. They just look, they're not reacting to the right things and seeing the very obvious things that I can see. And granted, I'm seeing this from afar, but you got to know what you got to pick up on some little keys, and they're just not picking up on that. So that concerns me with a team that's heavy run, that's going to obviously run a ton of play action off of those. They got to clean that up. So right now, I got to lean offense, just with Holgorsen and the way he's going. But I tell you what, if the defense plays better, and you get the consistent effort and the consistency what we saw against Wisconsin out of this offense heading this game, you definitely like Nebraska's chances.
Jay, it's supposed to be 10 degrees with the wind chill today. As a player, of course, going into the game, you just have to say, I don't care what the weather is, I'm going to play the exact same way. But with the benefit of hindsight now, where you had to kind of get yourself into that mode back then, as you're sitting comfortably in a living room with long sleeves right now with some heat, what do you have to do to get yourself mentally ready? And then how does a 10-degree wind chill kind of game, how does that play out? What is compromised for you, just in terms of movement or wrapping up or players being more slippery or it hurting a little more? How does it impact, if at all?
Yeah, I think defensively, it doesn't concern you too much. I think it's definitely harder on the offense. It's harder on the quarterback. The ball just gets the leather gets a little slicker. The ball carriers, especially now, if they wear sleeves or whatever they have, everything just gets a little slicker. Timing gets a little off. You're not able to grip the ball. You might see the quarterbacks wear gloves to try to increase the grip pressure on a football when it gets cold. But other than that, it's about the only thing I think that really makes a difference. It doesn't sound like it's supposed to be too windy, so it's just gonna be cold. Now when it's cold and windy, that's a whole different factor, because that's affecting the passing game and just the kicking game in general. But if it's not going to be howling, 30, 40 mile an hour, again, it's just the texture of the football. But with all the equipment they have, and they're able to change the balls out in and out on the sidelines, I think they even got like they can put heaters or warmers in the deals. The sideline guys they're carrying around the footballs in there. So probably won't be too much, but really it's just those offensive guys, man, those your little guys, right? Your receivers that don't have a whole lot of extra meat on them. They can get a little chilly. Yeah. But other than that, yeah, I don't think it's gonna have too much to do with how this game goes.
Jay Moore with this Black Shirt Husker NFLer, Big Red Wrap Up. Jay, we'll let you get off to some volleyball action. Love you, brother. Thanks for joining us, and we'll holler at you next week and crack a Coors and enjoy some football.
Yep,
all right?
Yep, we'll do. Enjoy the game. Safe travels back home. We'll holler next week.
All right. Thanks, Jay.
guys.
Appreciate you, man.
All right, appreciate it. There he is, Jay Moore with us here, and we bring in the pride of Fairbury, Bill Dolman. So I am going to leave it to you three. I've got to crawl out of here or I'm going to pee myself.
Okay.
So
Got it.
I'll be
Elijah,
right back.
can you cut that up? I think that's a good promo for just for this show in general. Yeah. I don't think they heard that, Bill, but I mean, right? Like that's a pretty good one. I mean, you help you teach broadcasting, you teach classes, you help mold our youth, and like, listen, anytime you can promote your host urinating, you're going to get ratings. You're going to get. I mean, you can't, right?
Is he in Tijuana? What? What kind of show we doing here? Yeah. I usually tell my kids, take care of that before we leave the house, kids. Don't make me turn this thing around.
Yeah. All right.
We're back.
On that
We're
note,
back.
Chris is leaving to take his little potty break. So that's good. That's good. All right. Live shows. That's what we do. Bill, welcome.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm still here.
Yeah. Still here. Bill, appreciate you jumping on here.
Yeah, it's good to be on with you for a change.
I know. It has been a while.
Yeah.
Like, do we even have to cut in Elijah and Chris here? Or maybe
I was going to say, how about you and I just filibuster?
Yeah.
Or better yet,
Elijah's taking off. Drove all the way down to Iowa City, and
or better yet is when I listen to you on the show, which I thoroughly enjoy.
Appreciate you,
Kranak. When they say, "All right, time to wrap things up," Mark, Gary, Elijah, great to have you with us, and then Mark will drop in a, "Hey, what about that wrestling team?" And
right.
what about this? And I one time I was leaving my place to go to Beatrice, suburb of Fairbury, and you were wrapping up the show as I was leaving my apartment complex in South Lincoln, and you had not closed out the show by the time I arrived in Beatrice.
Perfect.
And because you just kept going on and on and on, so I thought it was masterful.
One more thing. Right.
Yeah.
This is one more thing to get into. Bill, could you believe Dana Holgorsen's press conference this week? I just cannot remember a time where a coach essentially skewers his own program the way that he did when he was talking about Nebraska's offense. And when you heard it, did you feel like a little satisfaction in knowing, like, yeah, that's what I thought too, and they don't pay me anything for it?
Yeah, we've thanked him for liking and subscribing to the Average Joe Sports Show, and having listened to Gary, Elijah, Schmitty, and me over the last few weeks, because he said what we've talked about, and look, every tavern and cafe and coffee shop from Falls City to Sydney has talked about the same things. People know what they've been seeing, and for him to come in here and say it was refreshing, was necessary, and I think it also, to a certain extent, lays the groundwork that if he's going to come back next year, which I don't think there's a guarantee, and I think maybe it might be 50-50, especially given what transpired in Boulder earlier today. But I think he's saying, look, if you want me to come back, I'm the offensive head coach, and there's going to be changes, and the only way we're going to get it done is if we do, what I say needs to be done, and that's personnel changes. So I think there was a message there that I'm not just coming on here to be one of your assistants. I'm coming on here to lend you my expertise, which is far greater than any other coach is going to get as they try to hire coordinators in this coaching carousel. Now, again, I mentioned Oklahoma State getting shut out in Boulder. There were already whispers about Mike Gundy's future at Oklahoma State. And for the most part, going into today, the consensus was he can really do whatever it is that he wants to do and go out on his own terms, even if they are 0-8, now 0-9 in Big 12 play. But to go to Boulder and do what they did, especially not score any points at the end of the game when he had the ball inside of the 5-yard line, they're saying this needs to come to an end. And if I'm OSU, the perfect guy for that job is the guy who's Nebraska's offensive coordinator right now.
Well, Bill, one of the things I asked to Gary Barnett earlier this week, and I will get your thoughts on, is have you seen enough that you're willing to anoint Holgorsen as the fix that this Nebraska offense needed? That, you know what, he put up 44 against Wisconsin. That's enough for me. Pay him what he wants, because that's going to be a very real conversation. Holgorsen plays coy at the press conference on Tuesday. Well, I haven't thought about the future. Well, you know his agent is going to go to probably Troy Danon this weekend and say, all right, how bad do you want me? In numbers, how bad do you want Dana Holgorsen to be the offensive coordinator? That's going to be a real conversation. So have you seen enough to say, you know what, pay Dana what he wants? Is he the fix that Nebraska needed?
But I don't think it comes down to pay because of the Houston mitigation. He's getting paid $4 million for the next, 3 years, I think, through 25 and 26 and maybe into 27. I'm not quite sure. But he's getting $4 million a year from Houston. Now, does he want to do them dirty and continue to get $67,000 a month and make them continue to pay the rest? Or is he willing to say, all right, look, I'll take $2 million, and which would be an exorbitant amount for an offensive coordinator. But given what Nebraska's paid the last one, $2 million would seem to be reasonable for Dana Holgorsen. Yeah. And we're talking about a 2-game sample, and today will be, round 3. But I think we agree that he's done some very good things for Matt Rule and been more, kind of the henchman to a certain extent for Matt Rule. So what is it? The price tag? I don't quite understand how money at this stage comes into it. How much control is he going to have in terms of personnel and all of that? How much is he going to have to go out on the recruit? Those are going to be some of the parameters that they're going to be discussing in the offseason. If he doesn't want to be here, I hope what he does do is give referral as to who would be the right guy for the job, right? And he may not have the same gravitas that Dana Holgorsen does, but at least it's somebody who can come in here and implement what he has done in a short period of time and say, this job would be really, really good for you.
Collectively, Bill, do you think Nebraska comes in today playing like a team where the albatross is finally gone and they play a little bit more free and loose and therefore better? Or do you think it's a team that maybe takes its foot off the gas a little bit, knowing that it finally made a bowl? Which one do you think is more likely to come to fruition today?
I talked about it the other day on the show. I think it's a legacy opportunity for guys like Ty Robinson, who I think is the leader of this football team. And I think that instead of just being the team, well, we got to a bowl game, so that's good enough, and make sure that we have a special place at every Husker football reunion, like the 94, 95, and 97 Huskers get. I don't think that's the case. But I think what they have a chance to do is not only can we win 6 and go to a bowl game, but we can go South Region kick Iowa at the end of the season on their home field and take the trophy back like they did 2 years ago, and then go on and win a bowl game. And now you go from, being that team that can't win games to one that finishes out with, a solid 8 wins, and you do carry momentum into the future. And that might give them a better seat at the table than being at the kids' table at Thanksgiving just because you won 6 games.
You heard it first.
I think there's a real legacy opportunity for these seniors.
You heard it first from Bill Dolman. The key in Iowa City, kick him in the nards.
Yes.
I don't think that was the direct quote, but yes, that was a good summary.
Bill,
good
thanks
AI summary.
for jumping in. I had to make a sprint through a sea of black and gold. Good to have you in, man. Happy belated Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Hope you had a good little trip over there.
Wasn't bad. There is apparently Crown Apple cider working its way around the room where there's little bits of apple. And, it looks pretty tasty is what I'm telling you. There's several Hawkeye fans are making their way outside here to the rooftop, not to see if they can fly, but just to have a cigarette break. Shocking, I know. But
like being in Winnipeg.
yeah, right. What do you think? What's your gut tell you about tonight? Is it going to be a bounce back for the defense, or is it going to be more of last week?
I think it's all going to come down to me to tackling. We talk all about Dana Holgorsen and all that. To me, it's going to come down to Nebraska's defense tackling the football and tackling Caleb Johnson and getting to the quarterback whenever they do drop back, which I doubt will be more than 15 times today. But they cannot allow yards after contact and, the 8-yard gain and to give them some confidence. If Nebraska doesn't tackle and, with certainty and gang tackle, they get to have 200 yards put up on them by Caleb Johnson, who has not had a great month of November. But if Nebraska's got to wrap up, they've got to be sure. They can't be chasing him all over the field or whoever it might be. I think he's going to have 30-plus carries. I don't think they throw the ball all that much. But if Nebraska doesn't tackle, they'll get beat. But if they tackle well and the offense just continues the rhythm that they've had, I think it's an opportunity for Nebraska to win, maybe comfortably. Last week Wisconsin had their 2 touchdown drives. Was it 2 touchdown drives in the second half? They were like averaging 75 yards on the 2 drives and under 2 minutes on both. In fact, they might have taken up 4 total minutes. Nebraska had 2 touchdown drives at the same time that were over 5 minutes on average. And if Nebraska can do that with ball control, work the ball down the field, workmanlike, nothing spectacular, I think that could, take Iowa out of any rhythm it might gain from its ground game. So be efficient offensively and tackle well defensively, and they'll win in Iowa City for the second time in 2 tries.
What'd you make of Dylan Raiola? Maybe compared to when Nebraska started its skid versus what you saw last week against Wisconsin?
The getting the ball out quick and not just holding it and allowing the rush time to get to him, because he had been holding the ball so long and the book was a rather short book. Just bull rush him because he's not going to run. And if he does, it's reluctantly, but he was holding on to the ball and then just dumping it off and finding the safety valve and relying on that. I thought last week, and to a certain extent, a little bit against USC later in the game, he was getting rid of the ball fairly quickly and relying more on athleticism, both his ability to throw the ball and the receivers to go make plays, which what he was doing earlier in the season. Just give those receivers the ball in their catch radius and let them go, make plays and earn money. But then he got so precise and tried to be so perfect and waited for the perfect opportunity to throw. And by the time he would throw it, it came and went, and it was disastrous. I thought he was much more. I think it was much more fun to watch last week. Certainly.
Bill, in your opinion, what does a confident and successful day look like for Dylan Raiola? Obviously, the weather is going to be a factor. We're talking a wind chill during the game, somewhere around 10 degrees. It's going to be cold. He's never really played in weather like this. What does a good day for him look like in your opinion?
Never really played in a day like this. Like, all the moves that he's made over the last 5 years, none of them have been further north than Lincoln. It was Texas and Arizona and Georgia. I don't think he's probably ever been outside when it's sub 40 until he got back to Nebraska. Okay, I know he lived in Detroit when he was a kid, and we're talking about playing ball. Look, I think if he's 67% of his passes, 70% of his passes like he was last week, I don't think he has to throw for 350. Might happen. Maybe they discovered a Jalen Lloyd speed and finally connect on one that opens things up a little bit. And I would love to see a couple of shots downfield just to scare their secondary a little bit. But I think
Malachi Coleman, something.
If you can find him, throw it to him. I think if he's like 24 of 35 or something like that for 230 or 250, that's probably a pretty good day in weather like this.
34 in Georgia today. Pat Clarence Beeks with the update. He'll be fine. No, there's more of a chant in the stream. Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter, to find Lloyd. And I want to see more Lloyd. Let's see if that's a thing or not. Tight ends, too. I mean, that's been Iowa's calling card. But Nebraska's got two guys that have emerged in Lindenmeyer and Borkacher. And sounds like, Bill, there's a motivated Thomas Fedoni.
Well, motivated is one thing. Able to is another. He's just not the same back or same receiver that he was when he, was so coveted out of high school. Let's face it. I've blown both of my knees, and it's limited me as well. I can sympathize with him. But I hope he has a nice day. Make some catches and make some yards. If Nebraska's going to lumber down the field with their tight ends, I don't think he's going to be the guy to do it. But maybe we see more Carter Nelson and utilizing his athleticism, whether it be, in tight sets or, extending the field a little bit. The tight ends are going to be important. There's no question about it in Nebraska's offense, but I don't think they're going to sneak up on anybody with either of the three that play significantly.
Bill Dolman with us here. Hail Varsity on the road, live Black Friday edition here. We're across from Kinnick, rooftop tailgate here at the Marriott. There's lots of big red sprinkled into this sea of black and gold. Kickoff at 6:30. Real Red Reaction follows on KFOR, KFORnow.com around 9:30, 9:45-ish. Stream only today. So many of you are in. We appreciate that here for the pregame weekend edition tomorrow at 7:45-ish. But it's been a good trip. We'll see if the payoff is there for Nebraska fans. Because, guys, it has been the year of momentum, right? We've talked about that M word. Nebraska had it early, lost it midseason, got it back with a big-time hire and an emphatic win last week. You take down Colorado, Wisconsin, and Iowa in the same season, and you finish 7-5 in the regular season. That softens the pain or what you thought the team could be. I'll be honest, man. During the losing streak, as bad as the offense looked and as what was asked of the defense to do, 10 points, 14 points or less, I mean, you're like, all right, where is this program going? Now you feel, at least I do, a whole lot different if you can keep Dana. And I hope there's, there's a Scrooge McDuck gif put out by Dana around midnight tonight to calm some fears if he's not here next year. But this really does kind of change the conversation for Nebraska. Do you go to Tampa? Do you lose a tough one here tonight and end up in Nashville, which isn't awful? But, man, to finish with 2 wins. At the beginning of the year, we were talking you got to split this November slate. You got to start splitting at worst with Iowa and Wisconsin. Got a chance to sweep. And Iowa's been worn down to a nub offensively. So those are all the things that kind of culminate for me about 6:30 tonight. Yes, tackling. Yes, offensive identity. But just more so competency. And right now, Nebraska's the way more competent offensive team.
Can you imagine what today would be like for us? And really, that's what matters is how do we feel about what goes on?
Yeah, absolutely.
If Nebraska had lost last weekend and we're sitting here trying to figure out how are they going to get a 6th win, what's the mentality like over there? How much pressure are they feeling? It's all on a freshman quarterback, all of that stuff. It is such a different mentality for everybody who follows this program that the significance of last week's win over Wisconsin, that you're talking about what bowl game to go to, but I can't imagine what it would be like today if it was the same scenario as a year ago. Beat Maryland, you're going up. You didn't do that. Now you got to beat Iowa at home. How are you going to get it done? The pressure that's on, that defense is too good, and then you gave an effort that deserved to win last year. You just didn't get it done. But here we are now with Nebraska either thinking, Nashville or Tampa. I mean, the complexion of this game and the approach to it is 180, 360, 540.
Yeah.
You know?
It has been a lot too, Bill. And then at the same time, how it has flipped where from the very beginning of the year, you trusted the defense and they were sort of holding up what the team is. And you didn't really trust and now it's completely flipped, right? And Nebraska's defense has been trending in a way wrong direction for like 5 weeks now, right? Say outside of Ohio State, which that was a great performance. Outside of that, Nebraska is giving up conference worst yards per play, right? Like it's amazing that it's even the same team that we're talking about here. And is that skid for Nebraska defensively? Was that a function of an offense that was going 3 and out too much, an offense that couldn't hold on to the ball too much, or couldn't hold on to the ball long enough? Or do you think that there's cause for concern with Nebraska defensively to close this thing out?
Well, the inefficiency on offense, yeah. I mean, that might be might have had something to do with it because the here we go again mentality, and they can't get anything done. It's going to be up to us, and that probably weighed a little bit. And now, so the defense is buoyed a little bit by what it sees over the last couple of weeks that these guys might be able to give us a little bit of a break and actually put some points on the board. And oh my God, we got a field goal kicker all of a sudden that's putting the ball through the uprights. And think back to what was it, the Indiana game? Nebraska had a chance to put points on the board with a field goal and didn't even attempt it. I mean, right. Like, and that to me, right, that sequence right there at the early stages of the Indiana game was the season at that point, all encapsulated right there in those moments. Offense is moving, can't get it done, and there's such a lack of confidence in special teams and kicking field goals that we don't even try. And then you get the defense back out there. That was all such a disastrous point in the season. But I think things are trending in the right direction. And I think might have been Gary Sharp who brought it up. If Van Poppel can does play today, I think that is a huge lift to Nebraska's defensive line with Hutmaker and Cam Lenhart and of course Ty Robinson.
In addition to the Van Poppel factor, having a guy who's fresh on that defensive line, you also look at this Husker defense. They've been at their best in obvious running situations this season. Whenever offenses are able to keep them off balance, you don't know if it's run or pass, they've struggled. But you look at 3rd and short, 4th and short, inside the 10-yard line. I mean, that's when I feel like Nebraska's been at their best. Whenever okay, it's likely a running play coming here. Ty Robinson really plays well in those situations. Bullock is able to flow downhill and fill holes really well. It's been those situations where Nebraska's been at their best. And the one thing about Iowa tonight is they're going to run the hell out of the football. They don't trust their quarterback. They trust their running back. And they win this game if they rack up 200 yards on the ground. There's going to be running early and often from this Iowa defense. And I feel like from what I've seen so far this year, that's when the Husker defense has been playing at their best.
And keep in mind, too, the Tommy Hill saga is over. I think that's another cloud that's kind of been over this. Even though he's a secondary player out on his cornerback island, I think that there was something to that cloud covered everything as to, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? What do we do if he's in there? What do we do if he don't? If he's not in there, who's going to play? You've got Malcolm Hartzog, moving around. I go back to the spring when they said we're moving him to safety. Oh, what a perfect move! God. Yeah, right. What a great move. And then Hill gets hurt, and you got to move him back to corner. And he's been he's just been out of position as a corner.
Yes, exactly. And I think he gets an unfair share of criticism because of that, right? Because do you question whether or not Malcolm is generally going to be in the right spot? No, he's always there. He's always in the spot. Or do you worry about him sticking his nose in and bailing on contact? No. Right? Which was the exact thing that Tommy Hill was not doing. Wasn't in the right spot, was bailing on contact. If you have just decent play on some of those plays, I think Nebraska's record is different. I mean, that's how much of a impact that was. I'm really interested that you called that out about Tommy Hill, not necessarily to criticize him because he clearly wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
But the decision to actually play him, I mean, he was clearly compromised and should not have been on the field.
Yeah. You were at times you're 10 on 11 and one of your 10 is 5-7, 8, 9. Right?
Yep.
You're right. You're right, Mark. He's Hartzog's in the right place, but when he's going up against that receiver from USC who was 6'6", there ain't nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. Right. Yep. Put him at safety where he can roam freely and just stick his nose in and make hits, and we're good.
Yeah.
Bly Hill had a week last week to knock the dust off. Ride with him at corner. Let Malcolm rotate back at safety. And also same with Buford. Whoever's playing better, Buford or Malcolm, you roll with. Whoever's making tackles, you roll with. And that goes for the rest of your back end, to be honest. The 5 and the 3-3-5 got to be good today. Got to be really solid tackling. They got to be really solid with their eye discipline, so it's not 3rd and 8 play action. And, okay, Bly Hill gets beat deep for a 58-yarder last week. That will happen, but you're supposed to have safety help over the top, and you didn't. Your linebackers, right? Shavers has been seeing more time. You've got Bullock that is loving this rodeo. You have Bayer and, of course, Wright. Your linebacking core has got to be disciplined today. You can't play slow, obviously, but that damn stretch play, they either keep wearing you to the outside and then they pick a hole, that natural seam, or they just cut it back if you over pursue. I mean, Iowa is deadly with it. And my fear is this thing's going to be so tight, is that all it's going to take is one or two busts, and that puts them in position for consequential points. I mean, this thing has come down. They've run a loop of it on social media. Game-losing interceptions. Walk off. I mean, it is high drama between these two teams every year. And it'd be really fun if you're a Nebraska fan to see it flip the other way where, hey, it doesn't have to be that close, first. Secondly, maybe it is close, but you watch Chasing 3, Dana's colorful way of saying, hey, we're putting you through this so you're ready for those super stressful moments in a game on offense. And then the defense, too. Defense is 2 years ago, the defense was able to get a stop on 4th down after a blowout turned into a tight ball game. Defense was able to stop Iowa. So, God, you'll never hear the end of it. We won't up here if Iowa's able to win the ball game with a running back that's as good as there is in the country. But he's a one-man band tonight, man, when you look at the Iowa offense. So this is set up for you, Nebraska, to take advantage.
You don't want Nebraska's secondary to be so run-focused that you do lose sight of somebody sneaking out on one of those 15 pass plays, and somebody just roaming free. You still have to be disciplined back there, right? And make sure that you don't let somebody get lost. That's probably the biggest concern in terms of what Iowa could do with their passing game. Maybe they paper cut you with passes to the tight end, like Nebraska did to Colorado in '94. And all the pass completions, 10 of the 15 passes go to tight ends and they pick up 8 to 15 yards, that'll be problematic because they'll just chew up ground, chew up clock, and let Johnson carry the ball 2 or 3 times. But you don't want to get beat because you are so focused on stopping him and not relying on 10 other guys to do it. Right? Don't break your coverage because you might be somebody who gets in on the gang tackle.
It's Bill Dolman with us here, a pregame edition Hail Varsity Radio, getting you geared up for Nebraska, and a bit less than 30 minutes left here in the show this afternoon before Schmitty and I got to go book it down to the press box. And Bill, to zoom out from this game and to look more at the season as a whole, does the result today change your perception of the success of the 2024 season for Nebraska? A lot of people have said, just get to a bowl game. Some people looked at the schedule and said, well, 7 or 8 is very attainable. Does the result today change how you evaluate the season as a whole?
I think Matt Rule's willingness to make a bold move with Dana Holgorsen is the season-defining moment. If he had, stayed with the same cards that he had dealt himself without doing anything and just saying we'll address it at the end of the year, then I think this would be, we probably would be talking about, oh my God, what can this team do in order to win 6 games? But I think Nebraska's carrying a confidence because he was humble. He humbled himself by bringing in somebody to help this team out. The way, I'm trying to think back as to how Matt Rule described their conversations, but Dana Holgorsen said, you just got to get here and help me figure this thing out. Remember that press conference? That was his first press conference. You just got to get here and help me out. So I think that's the season defining moment for this football team. And the fact that they did get to the 6th win is second to that move, because without making that move, they probably don't get 6, and they probably are, under a lot of pressure to try and get it done today. And I'm not sure that would happen. So I think this season has been defined already by his willingness to make a dramatic move like he did. Now it's up to him. His biggest recruiting job this offseason may be to keep Dana Holgorsen and not necessarily go off after 4 and 5 stars.
What do you think, before we say goodbye, happens in Stillwater? 52 rip. The Buffs whack Okie State. 0-9 in the Big 12 for Gundy and the Mullet. 2 years removed from a 12-2 conference championship season. I ask that because, what will Dana do? That's the question. Is Oklahoma State even a thing? Is the NFL a thing? Or is it just things are the ink is drying? It's just a matter of when they announce.
Well, I think whatever decision Nebraska is going to make, I think, or Holgorsen, I think that has to be done soon, right? I don't think that you let Holgorsen and Nebraska do this dance very much longer. So I would think that we will know by the end of next week what the plan is for this Nebraska football staff, because I think Rule has to say, look, you got to help me out here, because we got guys who want to sign on the dotted line. And if you're not going to be here, we may not get some guys. So I think Holgorsen, as much as he's done for Nebraska, he owes it to Matt Rule, and he understands. He's a head coach. I don't think he's going to play this out and say, yeah, I'll get back to you when I get back from, Maui, and we'll talk after the first. I don't think he's going to do that. That's one head coach to the other, respecting the job and understanding the situation. So I think there's going to be a coach's courtesy as to what he does. I do think, though, that if you're looking for the perfect guy for OSU in the Big 12, and you've got Texas ties, I think Dana Holgorsen, who's been at Oklahoma State before, he has to be your number one. And if he's not, then you're not. You shouldn't be in charge of collegiate athletics down there. I have a hard time believing, as you said, Schmitty, he was 12-2 just a couple of years ago. I know they were top 25 at the beginning of the season, which means absolutely nothing. But to go 0-9 and finish it out the way they did, just completely laying a snowball in Boulder, that was bad. That was really bad today. I watched that on my God-blessed quad split. So I don't know. That's the first call Oklahoma State's got to make.
Yep. I wonder if Zane Flores will transfer back this way.
He's out again this year. He hasn't played there in 2 years.
I know.
Yeah.
It hasn't been good for him. It hasn't been good. Maybe he comes back, but I don't know if he'd want to sit behind. Do you think what happened in Oklahoma State? I haven't been following them too closely. I know they haven't been winning, but is their NIL game terrible, or did Gundy just kind of lose? Like, what happened?
I can't believe I mean, they're in Boone Pickens isn't around anymore, but I mean, they got a ton of money in that program.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that when he left, he bequeathed a lot of, money. He's like Phil Knight to Oregon, but Pickens isn't with us any longer. But there's money in that athletic department, and I don't know, unless they gave it all to David Taylor, the Penn State assistant coach who took over the wrestling program. I don't know. I mean, but it went bad on him. That's for sure. And I think he had a whole lot of quit in that team this year. But if you're Mike Gundy, I would think that you want to be the guy who turns it around, right? And that I think Oklahoma State probably would respect that, because he's had plenty of opportunities to leave and hasn't done it. So to a certain extent, I think OSU owes it to him to say, okay, you got another year to turn it around, but if not, we do need to look elsewhere. I mean, they had Ollie Gordon, the running back, was a Heisman. As much as I hate Heisman Trophy candidacies, but I mean, he's the best running back in the country going into the season, and he won't get invited to New York.
Yeah. Wow. It's really, really kind of crazy. Nebraska wins tonight. Look at Chris pause, by the way, if for folks that are just there he is, and now he moved back again.
I thought
Chris
he was
paused.
listening intently.
And I was. Now we are back. Bill, we will grab you for Real Red Reaction. See if Nebraska can get this handled. I need a Bill Dolman prediction before we say adios.
I like what Nebraska's doing in its special teams and kicking games. So I think Nebraska. I'm not sure what I picked the other day on Average Joe Sports Show, so I'll just make up another score somewhere in there. I'll nail it. I think Nebraska wins it 24-10, which I think was Elijah's prediction the other day. But I think Nebraska does it with a majority of like 4 field goals and some combination of other ways of scoring.
We'll holler in a bit. Thank you much, bud.
All right, boys. Stay warm.
Thanks, Bill.
See you, Mark.
We will. Let's get a gambling angle, Kranak. How's that sound? Because you can
go.
Make your way over. Danny Burke with us. Burke's Best Bet. Burke'sBeat.com. Stocktastic and Odd Shopper. Danny, do you have us? We are in Iowa City, dude. How are you?
I'm doing good, guys. You got me loud and clear?
Yeah, we do, but we don't see your video. We just have your profile picture with the turtleneck, with the stash.
Where did you get the turtleneck at? I love that picture.
Look, we're starting to get some frigid temps out here, but no, that was from a little while back. I'm at a little football watch party here, so I figured I'd save us all the pain of having to look at me right now. Although I may be looking better now than after the first half of this Nebraska game, depending on how the flow of the game goes, guys.
Okay. You got some good prop bets for us for the first half?
No prop bets for this game. Certainly curious your guys' thoughts on this one, but I did actually make a play a little bit over, probably about a half hour ago. I've been monitoring the line movement for this game, and every time these two teams meet, it's always really intriguing to see where it's set at, because at least the past several years, certainly Iowa's been trending in a different direction than Nebraska, at least in terms of how the regular season ends out. Now, with that being said, we still know that this one, more often than not, comes down to the wire, seemingly comes down to one of the final plays. So when this was at 3 in the hook, I was a little taken aback, but I understand why. It looks like Iowa this whole year really has finally had some decent quarterback play. And we know how great their defense is, and being at home certainly helps. And look, at the end of the day, I don't know if it's going to make that big of a difference. You're still going to get a lot of Husker fans traveling, not too far, all of that. But what I ended up doing here, and what we also saw a lot of movement throughout the day, was with this total. And, correct me if I'm wrong, Schmitty. I know you're live there in Iowa City, but aside from it being cold, it doesn't seem like the wind's going to be a factor whatsoever. And we know that really impacts the total more than anything. And so it just seems like it's going to be a classic Big Ten Midwest type of frigid game. But aside from last year, this matchup has actually been fairly higher scoring. But of course, every year is different. But Nebraska's offense has taken that step forward with Holgorsen as their OC. On the other side, their defense has regressed as this season has prolonged. And on the other side with Iowa, as good as their defense has been and could be, I think because of those improvements in talent, we still see what the Huskers will do enough to score. And then again, Iowa's finally having competent quarterback play. They should be able to move the ball, at least run the ball against this Nebraska defense. So again, it was like 39 has moved up to as high as 41. I took over 40 in the hook. If you can still get 40 in the hook, I think that's a good play in this game. If you don't want to necessarily sweat out the potential heartbreak of Nebraska losing on a last second play. But if you were getting, I know you still are right now at 3, but if somehow you still have 3 in the hook available, the only way I would play the spread is to take it with the Huskers.
Danny Burke with us.
I look at that number. That's.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. You got it, Chris. I think there's a little delay.
No, I was gonna say, Danny, thank you for that. It's just bedlam up here with tailgate band music.
Just heard "Carry On My Wayward Son," a great song.
Yes, thank you, Kansas, right? But Danny, the number of 3, and does this thing come down to a field goal? Is it going to be one of those tight ball games, 24-17? If you look at the over-under number at 39.5, 38, 40, 41, wherever you got it, there's a little bit of lean to me where with the wind dying down tonight, maybe Nebraska's offense against that Iowa zone can do or continue to do some damage with that intermediate passing game, get the run game going. And then the defense might still be a little bit leaky. So maybe more points, because for ever and a day, it's been unders and 17-10, 21-17 type ball games. Do we see maybe some more scoring?
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I like that angle for the total going over. Because like you said, Schmitty, I mean, look, if Nebraska, the biggest thing you hit on, and I know I mentioned this last week to you guys, and why I liked Nebraska in that game is because Wisconsin was weak against the run. And I'm not necessarily saying that's the same with Iowa by any stretch of the imagination. But the point being is if Nebraska can establish that ground attack early, that takes a lot of the strain off of Raiola. That opens up the doors for many other opportunities for this offense to get into a nice flow. And all bets are off in this type of game. We've seen that, time and time again, every single year. It doesn't matter how these teams are looking. More often than not, it's going to come down to the wire. It's the old cliche. You can throw the record books out, but really it is applicable with both Iowa and Nebraska. So as long as the Huskers aren't turning the ball over early, they're not playing from behind early in this game, it should be a back and forth effort. And you really got to try to control the time of possession if you're Nebraska. You got to keep your defense off the field because that is the weak part of their game, in my opinion, right now. And I alluded to, it has regressed a little bit as the season's gone on. And look, they got the job done against Wisconsin. They did what they needed to do. But in the secondary, they have had their issues. And what Iowa's done so well this year, I think they're top 5 in net field position throughout the country. And that's a testament to their defense. And that's a testament to how much they can punish and really wreak havoc on these opposing offenses, especially when they're at home. So that's going to be the key here for Nebraska. Control the tempo, get that ground game going. And then, I think it's going to be an even keel type of flow of scoring to where we see it hit the over. And then it probably comes down to a field goal or touchdown right at the end of the game.
It's Danny Burke with this here, Burke's Best Bets on Hail Varsity Radio. And Danny, we couldn't let you get out of here without getting some thoughts from some other college football games as well. It's rivalry weekend. I know we got the Egg Bowl going down right now with Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Not sure if you have anything live you like there, but elsewhere in college football, you also have the game, Ohio State and Michigan tomorrow morning. That's the big one that I have circled. Alabama and Auburn in the Iron Bowl is also tomorrow. And last but not least, let's not forget about the game that nobody is going to be missing. Well, that's probably not true, but there's not a great 2:30 slate. USC and Notre Dame also tomorrow. Any other games in college football you like?
Danny, you got us still? Could you hear Elijah?
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. You guys got me now. All good?
Yeah, we got
okay,
you.
perfect. Sorry about that. Yeah, so the one game I was saying, I don't necessarily love the board. I mean, it's a bummer that Michigan-Ohio State is as big of a spread as it is, but that was pretty predictable based on what was going to happen with the Wolverines. I was going to say the Mizzou game is actually a little tempting. Missouri's a team that typically does not treat me well whenever I back them, but at a field goal there against Arkansas, I'm a little tempted to lean toward the Tigers here, still fighting to the very end. I know Arkansas always has been and is a scrappy type of team, but that's one that stands out the most. With Michigan, Ohio State, I mean, that's just so tough because, again, it's in a sense one of those games where you could argue it always seems to come down to the wire. But I've been a big proponent of Ohio State being the best team heading into this year. And what they did against Indiana, expected to a certain extent, knowing that the Hoosiers hadn't really played anybody and Ohio State needed to show who they were. So because you are under the 3 touchdown mark, I would probably still lean toward the Buckeyes in that game. But again, they don't necessarily need to go crazy, and that one is the issue. So I'll realistically stay away, but I'd certainly trend in that direction. But yeah, the one that, again, Elijah, that is really caught my attention is probably Mizzou, but we'll definitely keep monitoring those lines and probably have a couple plays a little bit before kickoff tomorrow.
By the way, that Mizzou-Arkansas game, do you see the 1 to 3 inches of snow forecast for Columbia?
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. Always love those snow games. Yeah, I think, plays a little bit advantageously toward Mizzou. Not much, but enough. Arkansas, not necessarily as acclimated to those conditions per se.
Yep.
Danny, speaking of snowballs, let's go to the NFL. The Bills this weekend may have a snowball on Sunday Night Football. That's what I'm hearing against the 49ers. Wanted to get your thoughts there. My Broncos playing Monday Night Football against the Cleveland Browns. What do you like in NFL action this weekend?
Yeah, talking about that Bills game, this is going to be a fun one here. And I was really disappointed last week in the sense that, I was one of my favorite games of the year was going to be, or was until it was announced Purdy and Bosa and everybody was out, was taking the 49ers against the Packers. And then naturally after I placed the bet, then we got the news that they weren't going to play. And if Bosa was out, so be it. But Purdy being out was really the killer. And it looks like he's on track to play this week. I haven't done anything there, but I think an angle to look at would be getting dealt somewhere in the arena with Christian McCaffrey, whether it be his rushing yards or an anytime touchdown score, because the Bills defense has been liable against the run. Now, they are very good in the red zone in preventing rushing touchdowns, but yards per carry and EPA and success, all of that, that is where they've been really getting hurt on the defensive side of the ball. So I think this is a game where we could see Christian McCaffrey come alive. And the 49ers are just so tempting because of how bad they've been. We still know the talent they have. I mean, every game right now is a must win for them. It's certainly tempting to look to take the points with them, but I probably will just stick to some CMC props. And Elijah, look, I gave you credit last week. I got to give you credit again. Your guy, Bo Nix, is actually making a case for Offensive Rookie of the Year, and it's insanity. I'm not trying to diss him per se, but based on what Daniels was doing, and he had Caleb Williams out there and all these, look, good for your Broncos. The defense is outstanding. I'd have to be siding with Denver in that game, but I think that's going to be a really good in-game betting spot. I don't want to, run to the counter to bet on Denver at their absolute high in the market. I think Jameis is good enough with that offense to either get a quick score or keep it close to then getting us a better number with the Broncos. So I'll wait for that angle, but I do like Denver pulling it out once again. I mean, man, good for you, Elijah. Your Broncos treating you well this year.
Yeah, Bears next head coach, Danny?
Here's the scary thing. After Thomas Brown was named offensive coordinator, we all joked like, yeah, now he's going to do well enough to be considered for a coach. And then he did do well enough, and those conversations started happening. Now he's the interim head coach, and it makes sense, right? They are going to interview him. Let's be real. And this is an audition for him, so it makes sense. But the track record has been terrible with these interim coaches. But the Bears are dumb enough to do that. So there's still a 50-50 shot they actually make him head coach. Obviously, Brown there or Ben Johnson, part of me, is a top candidate with Detroit. I actually don't hate the idea of Vrabel, and I know people are going to think you're crazy for not wanting to go with Ben Johnson, but Vrabel has the experience. If he brings a good OC, he is a good leader of men. I thought it was a little shocking when he got fired the first time. He never really had talent to work with. I mean, he got Ryan Tannehill to the freaking playoffs. Imagine what he could do with this talent that they have. Imagine what anybody with half a brain could do, except if you're Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron. You can see it right now with the new OC stepping in. The Bears look infinitely better offensively. So, I think Vrabel would arguably be my top choice. The issue with Johnson is he doesn't have the head coaching experience, and only a finite amount of guys can call plays and manage the game effectively. I'm not saying he can't, but we haven't seen the proof yet, and the bar's being set so high for him, and we know what happens to these coaches once they go to the Bears, so I could inevitably see him falling short of expectations. But those are probably the top two guys in my mind right now, with a slight lean, believe it or not, to Mike Vrabel.
Danny Burke with his Stochastic and Odd Shopper, Burke's Best Bet, and at Danny Burke 5 on Twitter, burksbeat.com. Danny, get back to the shindig. Thanks for giving us some time today with your thoughts and handicapping this thing. We always appreciate you, bud.
Anytime, guys. Enjoy it over there in Iowa City. I appreciate you having me on, and go Big Red, fellas.
See you, bud. There he is, Danny Burke with us. Danny, take
The
care.
turtleneck. The turtleneck.
The turtleneck and the stash of all staffs.
Yeah.
We have a lot of the overflow crowd is now out on the rooftop where it's a patio setting. Indoors here, the beer and booze line is about 7 or 8 deep. Junior's working on nachos, it looks like. He's the lone wearer of red at a table of black and gold. But no, it's pretty fun setup here in Iowa City. Second year we've been out here doing the Black Friday edition. We'll be back for Real Red Reaction tonight. KFOR, KFORnow.com. I know volleyball's going on right now. First set goes to Penn State.
I can barely hear you, but yeah, Nebraska dropped set 1 against Penn State.
25-21.
25-21. I'll get the live score in set 2 pulled up for you guys. 5-3, the Huskers lead at Penn State in set 2 as they try to get a setback. Should be a thriller out there. Big Ten Conference title on the line. State College.
Kranak, what happens tonight? We got to get your prediction. Elijah and I both said go Big Red. Nebraska wins tonight, so either make it unanimous or tell us why we're wrong, Big Cat.
I got Iowa 27-20 in this one tonight. I think the home crowd, I think just the last game for seniors in Iowa City, the bad blood that Nebraska and Iowa already have, the way that Nebraska's defense has been trending, I just see Iowa pulling this one out. If this one's in Lincoln, I think I might reverse it, but I just think it'll be enough to flummox Nebraska, to mess them up a little bit. This will be the most hostile environment that Dylan Raiola's ever played in his life, right? He's, Indiana was obviously a big game, but that, you're not going to confuse Indiana Stadium with Kinnick. And then Ohio State, 11 o'clock or 2:30, whatever time that one was at, the place wasn't raucous at all. So he's in for a type of crowd that he's never seen before. I think that'll play a factor, especially given how Iowa is prone to win the turnover battle.
Last year, boycotted the trip because, Nebraska won. He didn't want to drive all the way out to his homeland and see a repeat. Yeah. But he does give us a prediction, Chris at HailVarsity.com. Says Iowa and Jackson, Sunshine, Stratton. Like, remember the Titans. He's right there with Ukraine Act 27-20.
Yeah.
So
it's not what I want to
Nebraska
happen.
fails to score at the end. The Iowa defense holds. He's right there with Natty Mark. I love it.
Listen, it's not that I want that to happen. All right. I want Nebraska to win 45-3, but it's not going to happen.
No, you have it's like you're working for the Red Cross. That's how much red you're repping right now.
I mean,
we are going to pack up and head across the street, Nebraska and Iowa, as we'll be back here, Real Red Reaction, KFOR, KFORnow.com, live from Iowa City. God love all of you. Thank you much for checking us out and being with us in the stream. Big thanks to Jay Moore. Big thanks to Bill Dolman. Big thanks to Brandon Vogel. Big thanks to Danny Burke. And Cranack, thanks for hanging out. We'll check in tomorrow morning around 7:45.
I'll be there about 7:46. Can't wait.
I love it. All right. Enjoy Nebraska and Iowa. Thanks for tuning in to Hail Varsity Radio, Hail Varsity YouTube. Like and subscribe there. Hail Varsity Twitter, Hail Varsity Radio Twitter, KFOR Facebook and Twitter. And appreciate y'all.
And I'll add, if you missed anything from the show today, we still got some time till kickoff. The replay is up on the Hail Varsity YouTube page as well. You can go rewind it back to the start, catch anything you missed, our full thoughts on today's game. So if you caught us late, you're just joining us now, and you're like, man, they're just ending. You got plenty of time to go back and catch the show as a whole, so you can do that as well.
All right, we'll talk soon, right around 9:30, and enjoy Nebraska and Iowa.